Welcome to the Voice of Hope with Marcia Wygum. Marcia promises to be transparent and honest, to help you to rise and pursue your inborn potential to live your best life. She shares stories of faith, adversity, victory, healing, and resources to inspire your rise. Here now is Marcia Wygum.
Welcome to Voice of Hope podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Trina Rodriguez. Trina will share her journey, her life lessons, and her ministry with us. I just want to thank all my partners who are partnering with us financially to produce more and more podcasts. And if you are joining us for the first time, welcome to Voice of Hope. And if you like what we're doing around there, please feel free, if it's on your heart, to partner with us financially to do so. There's going to be a link on the main page. So just click the support button, or you can email us at voiceofhopepodcast, the number 1 at gmail.com. So as promised, we will share stories of inspiration and faith, adversities, and so on to help you rise, overcome any challenges that you face in life. And today's guest is just going to do exactly as I promised you. Trina! Who is Trina Rodriguez? Oh my goodness, I hope I'm messing up your name.
Oh, wow. No, you're not. That's perfect. Trina was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. I was the youngest of 3 daughters that my mom had. And my mom was a single parent, and it was pretty rough up in Baltimore. But that's where my beginnings started.
Right.
My mother was a drug addict as well as my father. So I grew up pretty fast, let's say that. Winded up being just finding a lot of adversity early on in life.
Wow. Trina, when you say mother was a drug addict, so is the father. Bring us into that. Bring us in the home, Trina.
So my father wasn't there much. They were both estranged when I was born, because I was kind of born out of adversity. So
yes,
my mother had been a drug addict ever since I could remember, and she had a big heart, right? Loved people, always trying to help somebody to our detriment as a family. But a loving person, but she had this addiction that she could not shake, which ultimately killed her. So she died about 9 years ago now, and of a drug overdose. But she was a wonderful woman that had a really big heart.
Wow.
Yeah.
That made me feel so emotional right now, just to hear that, because oftentimes we see people, struggle. You're brought up in that kind of household. And then we can stay on the other side and we can judge, we can criticize. But I love how you point out that mom had a big heart. But then probably mom didn't have that help that she needed and that guidance.
She tried several times to get off of drugs, but she was one of those people that wanted to take people with her. So she was always trying to get her friends off of drugs. And the likelihood when you're beginning to recover, the likelihood of you being able to get somebody else off drugs is less likely than them pulling you back in to that world. So as she was trying to get people to come with her out of the drug realm, they just pulled her back, and she winded up overdosing and passing on.
Would you say then, to the person who was probably out there who was in the same similar situation, would you say it's best then to not do it alone? Because by nature, we are people who want to help each other.
Right. Definitely. I would say that you need to first build yourself up so that you can learn and get it into your spirit. Like you have to be strong enough and you have to be in your recovery for a certain amount of time before you're able to try and help other people out. So it's just like, if you're a counselor for, or a sponsor is what they call them. If you were a sponsor for a drug addict, you've been removed from drugs for quite a many years before you're able to do that. And I would say that if you're trying to get off of drugs, first, it's just like that airplane going down. You have to put the mask on yourself before you can help anybody else. So until you snugly get into your recovery, you really can't help anyone else, because it's kind of like it's drowning, right? If you can't swim and someone else can easily take you down with them. So I would say always stick to your support system. But make sure that you're strong enough before you go back for someone else.
It makes sense. Because we can say, I'm just imagining that if your mom had that support or was strong enough in her recovery, this would be her ministry, because she was actually helping others. Can you see that?
Yes. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. So, she wanted to help people. Definitely.
Yes. So how did this affect Trina in the home at the time?
Well, because my mother was gone a lot, me and my sisters were pregnant very early on in life because we had no really supervision. So we were all teen pregnant at teenage age.
Yes.
And it was just difficult for us to have a support system that was built on a steady foundation, right? It was always like we were trying to survive early on by ourselves. Yeah.
Both of you, so three girls was in the home and 2 were pregnant at an early age.
All of us, all 3 of us were pregnant at the teenage years, during our teenage years.
Who is the oldest? Was it you?
No, I'm the youngest. I'm the
youngest, right?
Yes.
And 3.
And so we're all 2 years apart. So, 1 year and some change apart, not 2 years apart. I'm sorry. But because mom was gone all the time, she worked in a bar, she was gone at night. And we didn't have really anybody else in the house with us. Then, when you leave children unattended,
yes,
they tend to find things to, and it just happened to be like boys, right? And that's kind of the way we grew up. So
not only that, when you leave kids alone, because some parents sometimes, have to leave, you have to do what you have to do to take care of the kids. But probably need to speak to those predators who know that, the daughters are over there, the sons are over there. I want to say they have a part to play, to Trina.
Oh yeah,
right.
Definitely.
The community have a part to play. Suppose I'm a mom and I know that know the struggles over there. It's my responsibility to keep my boys from going over that yard. I don't care if you're friends. Trina, mom is not there, so we ain't going over there today. Or if that's the case, we'll make an agreement to have them come over to our house so that the supervision continues, right? How would you say the community can play a part in helping someone who is having a challenging time, whether drugs or whatever the situation? How can you think the community can play a part?
Yeah, my advice would be to find a stable family to attach yourself to. Right. So find some adults that care about you, and spend more time with them. Right. Because that foundation is so incredibly important.
Yes.
And when I had my daughters, and I had 3 daughters as well, just like my mother, at a young age, I was a teen mom. And I just knew that it was so important to have a stable place for my children, right? And to lay a foundation. Right. So when I was raising my children, I I wanted to do everything differently. That's all I knew. Everything I tried was me trying it for the very first time and trying to figure it out. And I was trying to go to school because I wanted my children, excuse me, I wanted my children to understand that education was important. I got pregnant with the first one and I'm like, how am I going to take care of her? I don't have any education. Like, what does my future going to look like? And so I started going to school. I made sure that they were in good school districts. I made sure that they got the education that and had the stable home that I did not have.
Tell us how challenging it was. What was it like? What did you have to do? And just speak to our audience out there who probably are teen moms or going through challenging times, or probably they have the kids and they're thinking that that's it.
When you're trying to do something, for one, when you become a teen mom early, you have to make some decisions about what kind of mom you want to be, right? And what life you want your children to experience. And I knew early on that I wanted something different. And so I moved to a better neighborhoods. I couldn't afford private school and things like that, but I could afford to go to live in a little nicer neighborhood that had a better school district. Living up in Baltimore, Maryland, they have really terrible school districts, and they have places that you can go that teaches you how, to go to college, and they prepare you for higher education. And I wanted to be in those schools. So I moved my children to a better area, and I got them into dance and basketball and volleyball. I got them into things that kept them busy. Yeah. I always tell young parents, keep your children busy, because an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And when they don't have anything to do, they tend to move toward things that are negative, not things that are positive.
Wow.
And so I am a lucky today. And I decided, so I was in Maryland, and then I was like, Baltimore is really getting crazy. I want to move my children to a slower pace. And I decided to relocate to North Carolina. And so I raised my children from middle school on up to in North Carolina. Right. And it was one of the best decisions that I ever made. But it was one of the loneliest decisions that I've ever made, because I was trying all these things that nobody else around me were doing. I was trying to go to school. I'm trying to raise kids. I'm trying to, it took me 12 years to get a 4-year degree, because I would not give up. And I wanted my children to see me finish. So today, because of God's grace and mercy, my oldest daughter is an opera singer. My middle daughter is in nursing school. She's trying to complete nursing school now. And my youngest daughter is the first doctor in our family. She is a veterinarian. So I say to the young parent, right, to the teen parent, that It's not about where you start. It's about where you end. It's about your determination to be and do better, right? It's about, your persistence, right? And your perseverance, your resiliency, how you bounce back, and, what's more important, making sure you keep the focus. Once you have children, it's not about you, it's about them, because you chose to bring them into this world. So you have to be focused on how to make them better people, so that they won't be teen parents, so that they won't make the same choices that you made, to give them better options.
You decide to be the change. And not only decide to be the change, you also decide that you want something different for your children. And I love, after realizing that the one area was not working out, you move the girls, and you go to a different state. So it's not just making this decision, but we have to continue to scope things out. Is this working? Speak to us a little bit about that. Because then it was okay, this is my situation now. I'm a teen mom. Yeah, I'm on my own right now. Just empower them a little bit for me as to just keep scoping it, testing it, be ready to readjust if it's not working out.
Yeah, I had to make a lot. I mean, there's a lot of failures in that, right? In that, making decisions that didn't go quite right. So you had to pivot.
Yes.
It's not a failure. If you tried, it's not a failure. right? It's just you learned a way that it didn't work. And, I moved to the county and I found out, okay, this is better. I moved to the county. That's good. And that gave them that little leg up. But then I realized that just Baltimore altogether was not a good place for us. We need to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And so me coming down here and living here, everything was just slower, right? They could focus more. I put them in AAU sports. I made sure that my oldest daughter went to the North Carolina School for the Arts. So she went to a boarding school and she stayed there. And that's where her singing really took off.
Yes.
And so I just made some really hard decisions because it was hard for her to be away and not be home, right?
Yes.
But it was also difficult because I wanted to make sure that I was making the right choices and I didn't have any guidance, right?
Right.
And so I think that's the important thing. You have to be willing to pivot or to say, okay, this is not working. Let's try something else and do those things and move and act on them. And it's okay. It's okay if you don't make the right decision the first time, right? Nobody makes the right decision the first time, every time, right?
Yes.
And I just wanted them to have, it wasn't about whether I allowed them to be in this sport or that sport or do this or do that.
Yes.
It was about the opportunities. All I wanted them to do is to have the opportunity to do and be whatever it was that their heart desired.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. That just reminds me of my journey when I emigrated to Jamaica, because I wanted to give my kids a better opportunity. But, in search of that opportunity, Trina, I realized that I really didn't necessarily have to move or to emigrate from where I was. So talking about a little bit of ignorance right there. So on the journey and the challenges, I realized all I needed was already inside of me. So probably it was an environment change, not necessarily a migration change is necessary. So I love that. We have to be determined. We have to make a decision to want more, to change the status quo for ourselves and our kids and our kids' kids.
Oh,
how can you know the effect that it had on you and your siblings? How can adults support the teen community even before pregnancy? What would you say to the adults around? As I think about that, Trina, there was just a recent thing I read of a teen mom who had a baby, and she must have, gotten scared and so on, but she take the baby with her, just give birth. And then she take the baby to this restaurant, and she was just asking for help. She said, I need help, the article read. And this one woman was in the store. She turned around and she saw what's going on. She walked up, and the teen mom and the baby over to this woman and walk away. No, I commend her, because there's so much stuff could happen in that moment right there. How can we support our young people in our home, in our community, and probably if they're already become pregnant?
Yeah. I would say that we had to spend time with them, right? We're letting YouTube and TikTok raise our children these days. We're not paying enough attention to what they're doing, what they're interested in, trying to lead and guide them in the right direction, right? We're basically letting them be entertained, and entertained is not thinking, right? Instead of picking up a book, you want them to look at this, person that's setting up a precedent that's unreal, right? That you just woke up beautiful, there's not, I'm an overnight success because I'm half dressed, right? And there's you have to pay attention to the idols that they're putting in front of them, right? And you have to make sure that you're talking to them, that you're keeping an open dialogue. Hey, what is it that you want to do with your life? I talked to a teen that I'm really close to, and I asked her, what does she want to be? I said, so what do you want to be? And she said, I don't know what I want to be. And then she said, I want to be married. And I was like, so what do you have to offer someone that you want to be married to? Like, do you plan on doing anything for yourself to build yourself? Right. I was like, you should have something to offer too. As a woman, you should have something to offer too, right? But it was just trying to get them to understand that um, it's not about other people, it's about you and what internal work that you've done. And
Yes.
as a parent, you have to watch your kids closely. You have to watch their moves. You have to watch who they're hanging with, who they're affiliating themselves with. And I think just making sure that you're monitoring them, because I think currently we're letting YouTube and
Media.
all of these
Mhm.
social media platforms to raise our children, as opposed to letting them have good expectations and good hopes for their future.
Wow. As you said that, I think about these 4 things that I read recently in a book called Marriage on the Rock. And it says the basic needs that our human beings are instinctively motivated to satisfy all of our lives are acceptance, identity, security, purpose. So acceptance, identity, security, and purpose. And as you and I share this because when you said she said she wanted to be married, it tells me right there that it could mix up into these 4 things here that she probably want to feel accepted. She feel like if she marry, he's going to provide all of this stuff. But
Mhm.
Trina, you know where substance come from. Who we live and move and have our being in. And
Right.
these 4 things, acceptance, right? It doesn't come from our husbands or anyone else or in sex or having the kids and all of those stuff. It come from our source. So I
Right.
always tell my kids there, we have 6 kids. And I don't think it's too early to start to tell them about these things. But all these 4 things can only be found in who our source is. I mean,
Mhm.
Trina, I know for you is God, for me is God. But
Mhm.
guess what? If you're out in Radio Land, we aren't gonna dispute who your source is. But
Right.
come to a place of knowing and identifying your source.
Mhm.
Because until we know that, then that's how we're going to infuse that in our kids in our home. Because, as you know, Trina, we are responsible for our home, right?
That's right.
I love it, Trina. I love the progression right there. Your mom was a helper. She has an art of gold.
Mhm.
Your mom was an art of gold. And even though, we can say, oh, she died of overdose though. Guess what? We hear from you, Trina, that she was bringing a lot of people with her. She wanted to help. She wanted to help them, right?
Mhm.
Trina, then you turn, teen mom eats your doors, and you decide that you want to be the difference. And you change that up. We see where the success of your girls right now. You are on a journey right now to make that difference. Because we're asking about community, and we're saying what the adults can do.
Mhm.
What is Trina doing right now to give back? Not only to the family and the households who are suffering from drug addiction right now, or the teen moms, but in women and in life in general. Tell us about F.E.M.E work.
Yes.
Do not
So
sit.
yes, STEM work has was birthed out of a tragedy in my life, and I have a story that I share that I'd like to share with you right now. That's okay.
Please go ahead. F.E.M.E work is birthed out of tragedy. And then there's a story.
I couldn't wait to be 40 years old. 40 was my magic number. It meant that my youngest child would be 18 years old, and I had reached a pinnacle time in my life. I was excited about the possibility of traveling, going on new adventures, taking risks, and living life to the fullest. I was eager and ready to experience new things, beginning with the purchase of my brand new motorcycle.
Mm.
My biggest surprise is my sister Missy had come down from Baltimore to celebrate my big day. We played cards, took turns riding a motorcycle, and just enjoyed each other. The weekend was a success, and I was energized and ready to begin my new life. But Sunday seemed to come too soon, and my sister, her son Carl, and my daughter Queen had to go. I was sorry they had to go, but my sister's presence really made my 40th the best birthday ever. On the following Friday, as I was preparing to go to work, I received a phone call. On the other end was my nephew, Carl, sobbing uncontrollably and muttering words I couldn't understand. As I urged him to calm down, I heard Queen's voice in the background, stammering something about an ambulance and resuscitating my sister. I was confused, weak, and scared, but I knew one thing. I had to get to Missy, and she was 5 hours away. My husband and I gathered our things, collected my youngest daughter, and we headed to Baltimore. As we were in the car, I began to call my job to alert them that I wouldn't be in and to let them know what was going on. As we were in the car, my husband began to nudge me and said, honey, I need to talk to you. Can you hang up the phone? And I said, no, just give me a second. Let me get some stuff at the job straight, and then I'll be right with you. And he said, no, honey, I really need to talk to you. Can you hang up the phone? So I conceded. I told my boss I would call her back. I hung the phone up and I turned to him and I was like, what? What is it that's so important? And he took this really slow, deep breath and he said, your sister has died. And it was as if everything went silent. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart in my chest. What do you mean my sister died? She was just here last week. There's no way she could be gone, not gone forever. And then all of a sudden I heard this blood-curdling scream that jolted me out of darkness into reality, that my sister had died. This drive was the slowest, most miserable journey of my life. Missy was more than just my sister at times. She was my mother, my friend, my confidant. She was literally everything I knew about myself. And she was gone. And I was lost. All I kept thinking about is talking to her earlier in the week and she telling me that she didn't feel well and she had called her job to let them know that she wouldn't be in, and they threatened to write her up. And she went just 3 days before her death, and she went to work anyway. I kept thinking, why would you go to work sick? Why wasn't you more concerned about your health rather than a dang job? When I got to the hospital in Baltimore, I found out that my sister had died of sudden cardiac arrest. And they allowed me one last glance before they covered her over with the sheets. She meant so much to me. It was so hard to let go. And for the next few days, I had the difficult task of preparing for her funeral. And the process was mentally and physically draining, but I made it through. I also had to go to her job to pick up her things amongst all the other loose ends that had to be tied. When I arrived at her job, her supervisor greeted me at the entrance and escorted me back to her desk. And it was a completely open space. And it was dimly lit and it felt really cold. And in the center of it was a lone chair that had a sign affixed to it that read, "Do not sit." That sign pierced me like a spear through my heart. My sister had spent 20 years working for that company, sitting in that chair for most of it, and that's all that was left of her? A sign that the company had affixed to the chair? Is that what all her sacrificing was for? Is that the legacy that she left? I had no answers for her life. But in that moment, I realized that I had no answers for my own. During the ride home, I couldn't seem to get the vision of the sign in that chair out of my head. It seemed to have imprinted my soul. Do not sit. And that's when I decided that I didn't want to be in the passenger seat of my life any longer. I didn't want my sister's fate to be my fate. So instead of sitting, I decided to stand, and do not sit became my motivation to keep moving and not to sit, not even one more day. I wanted to be counted. I wanted to be heard. So today I plead with you. Do not sit and waste the talents you have been given. Do not sit around and expect someone to hand you your dreams. Do not sit out on opportunities to be better. And do not sit and wait for life to pass you by. Thank you.
Let me remind you that you listen to Voice of Hope podcast. I told you that we'll share stories of adversity, faith, victory, to help you rise, overcome, and live your dreams. Yes, we're still listening to Miss Trina Rodriguez. Her work, F.E.M.E work, was birthed out of tragedy. What you just heard, yes, she's a poet. She turned reality into poem. That's a strong message. Do not sit. It's also not only a strong message, but it was very piercing. You know, sometimes we get up and we go to work and we think that's all there is to life. And we never focus on what our true potentials are. Work, that's which is within us.
I did a video on who could understand the plight of a Black man.
Okay.
And that is on YouTube. It's just some of my poetry that I had to get out of there after the tragedy of George Floyd. And I just wanted to remind our Black men that I see them and I love them. And so if you go on YouTube and you search who could understand the plight of a Black man, it'll come up. F.E.M.E Work is an organization it's a work because I wanted to help women that were like me, that didn't have the information they needed, right? To teach them how to successfully navigate through the workforce. Like I had to learn everything the hard way. And for most of my career, I have supported C-level executives or very high-level vice presidents and deans. And as a result, I've learned a lot of things of how to move in the workforce. So F.E.M.E Work is basically women work, but F.E.M.E stands for we teach individuals to have faith in their ability to affect change, to educate them in the area of their need, to motivate them to pursue their dreams, and to empower them to take action. So we help them with whatever they need in order to successfully navigate through the workforce. What I learned is it's kind of like a butterfly phase.
Yes.
Where, you know, at first I was in high school, started off when I was just, just a caterpillar, right? And,
yes, right.
When I was in high school, I walked down the hall and I saw all these, this list of people who had been accepted into these colleges. And I stopped one of my teachers and I was like, how did the people get into those colleges? And she said, they were in college prep and you took secretarial science and that's why you wasn't in there. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I didn't know that I was making a choice and I didn't know all the opportunities that were available to me. So I made a choice based on me wanting to work in the office when I could have been going to college, right? So that's when I really learned that there's information being held. And that's why we can't expand on our opportunities because we don't know. And I wanted people to know. I wanted to help them get there faster than it took me, right? And I wanted them to see that there is a way to break through some of these, boundaries that they have around them. Mm-hmm. And I want them to start building their professional brand early. I call it their visual resume. And that's what I talk to them about, how you show up, what your dress is saying about you, how your body language speaks words and much louder than anything you could ever say, right? That the interview doesn't start in front of the interviewer. It starts in the parking lot when you leave your phone in the car and you make sure that you're thoroughly prepared when you walk in, right? Thinking about what you're going to look like when you show up. Right. So I try to feed them confidence, right? I try to feed them empowerment, right? That you have, just like you said, you embody everything that you need. It doesn't matter about your circumstances. What you have to do is pull upon those strengths that are in you and cultivate them, cultivate that professional image, be committed to who that person looks like. right? And I just want the best version of them to come out. I want them to have options. I'm all about options, opportunities, opening up doors. And that's how that's how I'm giving back for F.E.M.E work, because I feel like my sister worked in that job a long time, and she worked at the post office, and it's not many places that you can go that will pay you like the US post office. And so I felt like she felt like her options were limited, right? And because she didn't have very many opportunities to go somewhere else and make the same amount of money, then that's why she felt like she was stuck there. And that's why she worked so hard. And I believe that it led to her demise. I'm sure she had things in her that could have been birthed, and she could have figured out her purpose if she wasn't busy trying to go to a job every day, just like you said.
Probably it's because of your upbringing and the stuff and the tools that you did not have.
Yes,
combined.
definitely. Yes, definitely. I would say the cocoon phase was when I went to an interview one time, and in that interview, a girl came out right before me, and we were at a law firm.
Yes.
And the girl had on this really colorful skirt, and she had these big 6-inch colorful heels on, and she was coming there for an interview. And when she walked out, I was like, Trina, don't say anything, don't say anything. But I had to. I was like, do you know that what you have on is not appropriate for an interview? And she said, you don't think so? Because we don't know. She thought that club attire, because you're dressing up to go to the club, she thought that meant you're dressing up to go to an interview, because it's dressing up. There is a difference, right? And she honestly did not know. And so that's when I realized that there's a need, right? And I was just touching on like some of the things that I try to teach like now. But that was kind of the cocoon phase when it started really developing what I wanted to do, right? With F.E.M.E work. And then the next phase was just when I gained my wings, which, my girlfriend asked me one time, she said, if you had $1 million, what would you do? And I got all excited because I explained F.E.M.E work to her. I want to go out and I want to help people be the better version of themselves. I want to teach them how to get hired and how to get a job. And I had all this fire and excitement in me.
Yes.
And she said, you don't need $1 million to do that. I was like, yes. I was like, wow. So it was kind of your dream. You embody everything you need for your dream to come true. You just have to get ready for it. You just have to move. So I believe that if you say it enough, if you see it enough, and if you move toward it, it becomes a part of who you are. So I continue to repeat to myself that I know F.E.M.E work is great. I know that it's going to help a lot of people. I put it up, I put it around me so that I can see it. I have pictures of F.E.M.E work. I have business cards. I have, F.E.M.E work has helped this many people. And, I put all those stuff in front of me so that I can see it. And then I talk about it as much as wonderful people like you allow me to. Because if I say it enough, if I see it enough, and if I move toward it, it's going to come true. It's going to be it's already a part of who I am. But it has it has to happen, right? Because it's in me. And as long as I'm moving toward it and do not sit, a lot of people are going to be helped by it.
Trina, if I could explain, if we have enough time, I could explain how I really feel inside. I have to put my lips together to keep them, not to say, not to interrupt you, because this is what the whole thing is about. Not just Marsha and the fire that's inside and the passion and the drive to just reach someone else, but just to sit back and let you help me do this. When you said, say it, you see it, and keep moving towards it. When you said, we all embodied it, it's all inside of us. It reminds me of an analogy that I love to use that says the apple has its future inside of it. What is the future of the apple? the apple seeds. Then some. What is it then some? The fruit that we all bite on the outside. We enjoy that. I love when you said, when your friends say you don't need $1 million to start. I know there's somebody out there right now, they're thinking, but yeah, Marsha, you and Trina over there. Yeah, Marsha, you're doing the podcast. And yeah, we understand your story oftentimes as we listen to the podcast. And we hear as Trina is saying her daughters are successful. She look nice and bright over there right now. But then how do we find that purpose? And I like, if I are you gonna let you answer that? But as I remember back, you said you were on the way out of the interview and you saw that young woman dressed in the way, and you said you were trying to say not to say anything, but you couldn't keep it back. So if I may just say this, and then you can expound, Trina, is that the things that annoy us, the things that causes us that we can't stop, we can't say turn a blind eye on it and don't say nothing. That's oftentimes the purpose.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes.
Take us on. Just expound.
Yes, it's that thing that just,
you.
yeah, it's just that thing that keeps gnawing at you and it keeps coming back. I thought that F.E.M.E work was birthed out of tragedy. My sister had died. I read my graduation, my graduate school application. And in that application, it said, I'm a marketing major, but I want to use my marketing to help people to get jobs and to learn how to market themselves. And I realized that it was just another component, another sign that F.E.M.E work, it was just what I thought I finally envisioned about F.E.M.E work. But if you go back, you can see little signs of what you aspire to be, because there's things that had happened along the way, along the journey, that has come up over again and again, right? Because
Yes.
I didn't think that I could write. So the idea of F.E.M.E work, which I thought was brand new, was not brand new. It was something that I had wrote years ago. I mean, I think it was probably 10, 12 years ago before then. But I didn't think, I have always had a lot of anxiety around writing.
Yes.
And writing is the thing that brought F.E.M.E work to life. Writing that story about my sister. Doing, getting out here, writing journal prompts every day, inspiring people, right? Helping them be a better version of themselves. Like, that's what it's all about. It's that nagging thing inside you that keep coming back. You think you put it away and then somebody else pops up, right? Because I was like, F.E.M.E work is slow right now. And then I'm in a room on Clubhouse and Marsha is there. And so I'm talking to Marsha about some of my stories, and there you go. Another flame ignited, another reminder, another thing that's poking at you to say, hey, F.E.M.E can't die. Like, you have to keep moving.
You are F.E.M.E.
So
you
that's
are
right.
It. When I hear, and since I talk about that, when I were hearing on Clubhouse, you stood out, not because you were speaking loudly, but because when I hear, I try to listen on purpose to hear the message out of it and the lessons. I face a lot of stuff, like you do, but I always try to grasp the lessons, because then I can say, I can share that. And when I heard you, I heard a poet. And I know a poet because guess what? I think there's some in me as well. Somebody just need to nudge me a little bit. I just need to say, Marsha, what you wrote? Let me hear it. I had a teacher that wrote me a note one day after I did a presentation. And she said, you read poems beautifully. Keep doing it. I still have that paper until today.
Wow.
When you spoke, I didn't just see a Trina. You're a poet. You're a poet, and it's inside of you. And I love when you embody everything. Do you want to share that? So, I guess a couple of things. Would you say, in order to find our purpose or the thing that annoys us, somebody might say, I could hear a listener said, Marsha, but that's everything in life annoys me. But it's not that everything we're looking for is that one thing, that thing that will cause you to stop the car and to go over lovingly and said, can I tell you about some resources, because I have a child too who has a developmental diagnosis. The thing that will cause me to do a podcast like this, because the podcast like this supports and really is to empower women who just got a diagnosis that a child is going to be different, or she's parenting a child who has a diagnosis, and all she hears is that this child is going to come to nothing. Trina, I can't tell you how many parents and things that I read that they all have the similar story. Doctor said, oh, it's going to be a vegetable. You can't do anything academically. And okay. And on top of that, termination is an option if you want it.
Right.
I know it happened because I was told that. So I like, oh, you just unfolding for us, the passion that's down in there is that thing that moves you to say something when you don't want to say something. I can't tell you how many times I'm on the road. My family, they know me by now. But when I go to places and I see people and if there's a need, I'm ready to serve. Trina, what I realized, it got confirmed this past Saturday. When I was growing up, and listeners, you can look in this area too. Look back on the thing that you always said you wanted to be when you were like 5, 6, 7. Go right back down there. Don't think about anything challenging. Just go right back there when you're a child and you jump up and say, yeah, I want to be a singer. I want to be like your daughter, Trina. She says she want to be on Broadway. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always said when I was growing, I was maybe about much, I don't know, very young. I said, I want to be married. I have a huge family of 7 kids. I want to have 7 kids, and I want to preach the word of God. Now, this past Saturday, from last year, I was doing some ministry classes. And then this past Saturday, I was licensed and ordained as a pastor.
Oh,
amen.
Amen.
And guess what? Why did I share this? I share this because along the journey, and we're doing life and we're doing this. Oh, I just know I want to go learn how to teach the word properly. So I didn't even think about the vision down the road. I was just reminded of this Sunday. I was like, can you see this coming together? So Trina, that's where it is. That thing down there. So don't be tempted to say everything annoys me. But look back down on that thing. If your mama is alive or your dad is alive or somebody, some good adult in your life, ask them, what did I say I always want to be? And then look and see. The path is right there. Probably you're already on the path, or you just need to divert a little bit, Trina.
Yeah.
Trina,
sometimes it's that thing that you try to avoid to act like it's not the easy thing. It seems like it's the thing that may come easy to you, and other people are like, how are you able to do that? Right? And you're like,
absolutely.
Me thinking that me feeling like I had so much anxiety around writing. Like, how is it that writing has become my thing? Right?
Yes.
How? Right.
And sometimes too, it probably could, and then we could probably be doing this and going deeper, right? Is that the anxiety that you felt, probably there was somebody in your life then who says, you can't write. Or
exactly.
you see, you're not your English teacher. Oh, if my English teacher hear me right now, they will say, you turn that mic off. But guess what? That's not about I'm not an English teacher or tutor or whatever it is. I just want to get my message out. Message of hope. Right? So it's that thing that everyone tells you ain't good at.
Right.
That's the thing right there. And then there goes anxiety. Oh, it's deep.
Yes,
but guess
is.
What? Break through it as much as you can. And that's why we have programs like this. And that's why I want you to reach out to Trina. And if you have a teen out there, or you're a teen mom and you want someone to connect with who is your tribe, Trina, the teens are the teens are your tribe.
Right.
Who can they find you?
They can find me at femwork.org, and that's FEMEWORK.org. And I actually have a 30-minute vision test, a vision consultation that you can go through if you're trying to figure out where to go. Like, we can actually sit down and talk to you, and I will sit down and talk to you and figure out some steps that you can take, right, to get you to where you're trying to go to. And I just want to help. I want to do my part, right? Everybody says that there are people that are assigned to them, and I am committed to taking care of those people that are assigned to me. So please reach out.
Absolutely. You said that lightly, but I'm gonna, if you give me permission, I'm gonna change two things you just said.
Mhm.
You said you're trying to. From today on, you ain't trying to. You're doing it.
Amen.
The sound of your voice is gonna go out. It's going out. And many people is gonna be blessed. Many teens is gonna realize that Trina is the leader of my tribe.
Mhm.
I don't want you teens, because you can speak to them perfectly. When you said we're all called to a particular group, if I had my book out, read to you what the pastor charged us with last Saturday, it said, embrace the people group that God calls you to serve.
That's right.
He didn't call you to serve everyone. Probably never calls you to serve a woman with a child with developmental diagnosis. But you walk the path of the teen moms. You walk the path of the drug addict.
That's right.
That's your tribe, I believe. And more, and some. Right.
People are always judging us, right? What we want to do is we want to make sure that we provide them with a canvas in which they can make a good judgment about us. So we're the ones that can control the narrative, and we need to be thinking about that before we show up, before we speak, being mindful of what comes out of our mouths, even if we're not in an interview. Period in life, right? If it's not meant to lift up, right? I've always tell my kids, and this is something I'll tell you, I'm like, so what is my motto? And it says there's consequences for your actions, whether they be good or bad. Think about the consequence before you do the action. And that's how I live my life.
When I heard you on Clubhouse, you were saying a poem. And that poem, after you told me, you were actually directing it to your partner. And I want you to close us out with that poem, because you are a poet.
Oh, I love
Trina Rodriguez. She's going to have the last word. She's going to give us the three things, and then she's going to close us out with the poem. Thank you so much for listening to Voice of Hope podcast, where we share inspiration stories to help you rise, overcome, and live your full potential. Email us at Voice of Hope podcast, the number 1 at gmail.com, or click on the link to partner with us financially if it's on your heart. You know, this is the internet. You don't have to do anything. But guess what? In spite of it all, money is needed for ministry. But ministry is not run by money. We're going to serve you. We're going to equip you. That's my charge. Trina, sorry. Oh my gosh. Take it away. 3 things, and then close us out as a poet with that poem you had.
3 things. I would just say the 3 things that I say to live a purposeful life. Is that what we want? I just want to make sure I understand. If that you see it enough, you say it enough, and if you move toward it, it becomes a part of who you are. That's what's most important to me. Because if you are talking about it, if you are putting that vision in front of you, putting it out to the universe and talking about it and getting God involved and have him all up in the mix, and you're working, because faith without works is dead. So if you see it enough, you say it enough, and you move toward it, it becomes a part of who you are. The poem that I'd like to share is Who Could Understand the Plight of a Black Man? When I think of the burden the Black man has had, continues to endure. The future of my sons, brothers, and fathers makes me feel unsure. During slavery, our men watched and felt powerless indeed, as their women and children were taken and sold like some seed. They were shackled, beaten, forced to watch their women be raped, all creating a hole in their souls, not knowing how to escape. After 400 years of torture, they told them they were free. only to be restricted and left to wonder how to rebuild the broken family. Supposed to be the head, but brainwashed from so many years of no hopes of being free. Then finally released with nothing, having built mansions for masters without a claim of equity. Wondering where to start, rebuild, and reclaim his place in a world with no respect. Yearning to be the alpha he was born to be and trying to survive with a knee on his neck. Fast forward to today, the government aids Black families without a man in the home, only assisting those women with children and rewarding them for the man being gone. Police brutality and killings running rampant, whether you're guilty or not. Incarcerated by the masses and profiting on them without a thought or a right. Giving the jobs to Black women because they're seen as less of a threat. Knowing all well the man has the skills, but the job he won't get. Then home comes the woman with a check in her hand, waving it around and asking, how are you the man? Where in this world does the Black man get a seat? Really never sitting down and never landing on his feet. Stripping him little by little of his dignity at every turn of a key, finding countless ways to oppress him, which is the opposite of free. Who will hold him and support him through this dark journey called life? When not only a woman belittles him, but claims she's his wife, forever giving love that's never reciprocated and forever accepting less. Who could understand the perils of a Black man when even he is unable to express the stress of finding a place in society for an alpha with golden skin that was born to lead in such a place that literally fears, dishonors, discredits, and really wants him to leave? So I ask, where is the love and understanding for the plight of a Black man?
You have been listening to Voice of Hope with Marcia Wygum. We're glad that you were able to join us today and that you found the program inspiring. For further information, please email voiceofhopepodcast1@gmail.com. That's voiceofhopepodcast1@gmail.com. Listen again next time for Voice of Hope. Hello, I'm Sydney Thorpe. Sydneysizer is here to help you meet your audio recording needs. Call or WhatsApp 876-281-2801, or you can email me at sidnesizer@gmail.com or sidnesizer@outlook.com. Or you can Skype me using Sydneysizer as my Skype name. Sydneysizer. We can talk. Sydneysizer, where we love to make good things happen.